Thanks.
We get shares. We get shares. You know where to go.
Thanks everyone for coming. This is a special meeting of the DMS Board of Directors. So there are no public comments in this meeting. Let's start with introduction. John?
John Owen, board member.
April Sauer, board member.
Gregory Schneider, board secretary.
Jessica Jarrett, treasurer.
Clay Conference President.
Julie Naples, board member.
John Tanner, board member.
And we have Christy Crutchfield, Acting Executive Director, as a guest. So the first item on the agenda is the discussion and development of financial plan and strategy for the remainder of 2019, the 2019-20 school year, and to start with the 2020-21 school year. So I wanted to get together this special meeting, talk as a group about our plans for the remainder of the year, our goals, our objectives, and how we're going to report that out to the community. So, as everyone is aware, we have a financial challenge that we are dealing with, and every month that we do, we get our financial results, we learn new and interesting things. So what the purpose of this meeting is to establish, again, as a group, what our goals are for the remainder of this year, how we're going to measure those goals, and then how we're going to report it out to the community. I know we have a financial report that we put on the board with a lot of numbers and a lot of details about what needs to be paid and where things are coming from. But I just think it would be helpful, not only for the community, but the members of the board, if we say that this is our target, this is what we're shooting for, and here's how we're progressing towards that on a month-to-month basis. It'd be easier for us to talk about it consistently, and also for the broader community to understand it. So with that, does anybody have any ideas around how we start? Jessica, do you have any thoughts?
I think we should figure out what our goal is. So, is our goal to survive the year? Is our goal to pay off some of our debts? What is our goal for this year?
Okay.
I think a goal is needed before we can come up with a plan on how to achieve it.
Well, I mean, what would the plan be if we wanted to finish the year, without any negative balance in our checkbook, the way it's been going, get that even? Is that realistic? I know we've been saying every month we're open, we're down about 15 grand because our expenses are that much over our revenue.
So, assuming no donations for the balance of the year, and our credit line maxed, and not paying anything to our community loans, and paying $5,000 a month to our past due bills, we'd need to cut a little over 17 grand a month.
So,
Or bring in 17,
Yeah,
right?
so that's like, say, from January through May, that's 5 months. So we're basically looking maybe about 300.
In addition to the 87 negative that was, that are there in the last one.
The negative in 87 is the profit for the year. So with what I just mentioned, it doesn't include paying off those debts.
Okay,
It's just getting us through the year in the black, not the red.
okay.
okay, so cash and income are two different things. And so what Jessica is talking about, I assume, is cash.
If we want our net cash flow to be in the black,
Yes.
Okay. So, our biggest expenditure is payroll,
yes.
right? Our second biggest expenditure,
In that payroll, are you including benefits or just payroll?
sorry, payroll and related expenses.
Okay.
Second biggest expenditure, occupancy costs, right?
Yes.
And our third is what?
Contracted services.
Okay. Payroll and related expenses is about 75%, right?
I don't have it with 5%, but
Occupancy costs are about 15%. And the contracted services make up the balance, right?
yeah.
Okay. So, our best opportunity to have the greatest impact is payroll and payroll-related expenses, right?
I would say most, I mean, that's where most of it's going, so yes.
So that's your biggest opportunity to have an impact, right?
You know, now when I was working again in schools, and there was a period of time after '08, when the state started really cutting back on the money to the schools. And that was the one thing they looked at, school board, because they had to have a balanced budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to payroll was even higher than the 75, it was over 80%. But anyway, it was the same thing. They
Yeah.
started looking at, you know, when you talk about the budget in payroll.
Right. So, payroll, in order to manage it, you have three opportunities, right? You can lay people off, reduce it by layoff. You can reduce it hours worked. Or you can reduce it with pay cut. Right? Is everybody there? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, as we look to develop a plan, how we're gonna manage our finances, first thing we need to do is understand our payroll costs, right? So we need to know who is scheduled to work where, for how many hours, and that is being adhered to. Right, so if I'm scheduled to work 35 hours, am I working 35 hours? And no more than 35 hours. We need to know that, right?
Yeah.
For hourly employees.
For hourly employees. from a benefit standpoint, we need to make sure that the people who have benefits are supposed to have benefits, and then if there's a cost associated with those benefits for the employee, that that's being done correctly, right? So we need to make sure that those deductions are done.
And I don't know if there's an option you can do this mid-year, but, oftentimes an employee would be an employee has coverage through their spouse's work. You don't really even need this, but it's, a possibility.
We can't do it mid-year because you've offered it, but one thing that we can do, and this is, as we look at next year, is benefits are given to full-time employees at no cost for a single employee only. So it's free, I'm gonna take it, but if if it was like a nominal cost, like you said, okay, it's $25. Well, I already have insurance, so I'm not gonna take it. So you could save that money if you make it so that people have to have skin in the game. All right, so we have hours management, deduction management. And then what else? As it relates to the management of the payroll.
Salary employees, the big other categories.
It is a big other category, but there's little you can do about that because that's pretty much a fixed cost unless you do a layoff.
Right, because all the teachers are contract, right? So
Right.
you'd have to look at the next contract period.
So, I guess what I'm saying is, if we look at the payroll and we determine this is what it should be, meaning these are the hours that they're supposed to work, these are the number of people who are supposed to be on there, and so we set that as our budget.
Like expected and actual, like,
Yeah, and then we measure that against what is actually happening.
yeah.
And so that's a goal to shoot for, to make sure that that is in line, right? Okay. Our other costs, which are contracted expenses, and so contracted expenses are, largest category in contracted expenses is special education, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we spend, I'm gonna say 140% of what we actually get reimbursed for contracted services and sped, right?
Christy would have to help you with that. I do not have I've spent time on the phone with Heather at Aspire, and I do not fully understand how the reimbursement works for sped contractors.
Okay.
I've tried, it's a hot mess. I don't know if anyone understands it fully.
But it's safe to say that we spend more than what we actually get reimbursed.
We definitely spend more than we get reimbursed for.
Okay. And it's a large number.
Yes, they work out some number, the state does, and they say, we'll give you this much, so it doesn't matter. One time a year, if we have a special circumstance, we can ask for more money,
Mm-hmm.
but even that, it's not like, oh, this year we spent this much, we'd like more money. It's, we have this particular case that we weren't expecting, and it's costing more than we thought by this amount, and it has to be a certain amount, and it's all a big
Okay.
thing.
You said you can only ask for that one time a year regardless of the number of cases?
Yes,
And it's like per student
No.
when they need it, or it's one?
it's like one time during the year, if there were students that you my understanding, if there are students you didn't know you were going to have, so if they joined mid-year and their services are exponentially more than.
Okay. Than predicted by the beginning.
And so if you had multiple of those, you could do them all at once, but you get one chance.
Okay.
Okay, again, and this is it's a current and a future thing that we need to do. So for next year, the budget needs to be set, the contracted services special education budget needs to be set closer to what the actual reimbursement is. And then we have to manage that better. But we are where we are now. And so we need to, and I think that we've made attempts to set a cap. Is that right? On the monthly sped contract
I've
service?
tried, but I am not being successful with that attempt.
Okay.
I just
I'm
got,
not sure how that's even possible.
yeah, I
Because
don't,
you get, kids are tested all throughout the year. You might have a kid that's been here all year, but they don't get tested and get their IEP until like this month, and then all of a sudden, you have a new kid who needs new services. If you've got a cap, it doesn't matter. You legally have to provide that kid with the services agreed upon in their IEP.
Okay.
I mean, they could maybe join groups that are, like if they're taking OT and there's a group of 3 kids, you could add a 4th if the services are, similar and they don't need individual attention, but.
but there's things like, what's this meeting called, Chrissy? IE? Is that what it is?
Independent.
Outside independent,
Yeah.
not independent
So-
evaluation.
Like, for example, and this is about to happen right now, we have a parent who wasn't satisfied with the services their child was being offered here. So my understanding is they got an advocate. And so then they are allowed to ask for this meeting. And the bill's gonna come in at between $8,000 and $12,000, and we get reimbursed for none of that from the state.
We don't invite that person, and we don't pay for it.
We don't have a
If the parent wants the
choice.
advocate to come, they pay.
No, we
No,
don't pay the
she's not
advocate,
talking
it's the
about advocate,
meeting
she's-
they're asking for, where all sorts of specialists have to come in and do all sorts of evaluations, correct me if I'm wrong, please. And those specialists will charge us between $8,000 and $12,000 for the meeting, and we have to pay that, and the state will not reimburse us for that,
For the testing, you're saying.
for that meeting. And we've got a couple, two coming up.
Right. Are we getting any, I don't know, so I'm just asking, like when a family goes in for those IEP meetings and then they're given the little parents' rights thing and then they put in if they have insurance, are we getting any money, like the kickback from any of the insurances on those?
I have no idea what we're talking about. so-
We probably should do that.
No, we should not. Parents can go and like get their own evaluations and take them with their own insurance, and then they can provide the report that the doctor gives them to the school and say, this is the evaluation my child got, these are the recommended services. But the school just
Yeah,
basically has,
that's not what I'm talking
they just
about.
have to look at that information. You don't get anything from that.
Well, I've been at schools and I understand it might be different, but it might be worth looking into because there's like a little extra at the bottom of one of the forms that we've done where they also put in their insurance information, their personal and medical insurance. And then those schools were getting, it wasn't a lot, but they were getting some money, which might help make up a gap.
I've never heard of that here, but I mean, you look into it.
Maybe it's a different charge. But
Yeah, I don't know.
it's
I've been a part of
money.
IEPs at 3 different schools and I've never heard of that.
Okay, but it's important to note that the situation just described here do drive the cost, but those are outliers. What we're talking about are ongoing month to month. And that the cost and the way that our current contracts are structured. The way that our current contracts are structured for our sped services are, a little difficult to understand, let's put it that way.
If we're paying outside services to do this testing,
Mhm.
and then we run into those kind of dollars, it's gonna be cheaper for us to have on staff.
That's not an option in in this particular situation. They are asking for an outside evaluation because they didn't like ours. So on the day-to-day stuff, it can be done different, but this is,
You don't
Christie,
have
can you
to
speak
pay
to
for
this?
that.
It's probably that that free and appropriate, probably based on, we have to, generally anyways,
Well,
have to provide the services.
once there's an IEP, you have to provide the services, that's correct. But we are under no obligation to pay for outside testing with the parents requesting.
we are.
You are, if, it's a whole situation. If they have, like, somebody like an advocate proving, okay, they did this test and this test, but right here they failed this portion of the screener, and they should have done this sub-test, you know, I mean, there are arguments for that, and they can request, I want an IEP. This is who I suggest that you hire to do the evaluation, and the school has to pay for it, because they dropped the ball. Happens all over the place. But you, Clayton, earlier you were talking about making sure that employees' hours match their, you know, their allocated hours. You can
Mhm.
certainly do the same thing with, you know, cross-referencing IEP minutes for contracted services to what we're actually getting, make sure that those are aligned.
Yeah, the
Sometimes
statement
that can
that,
get-
that I made before is our contracts are, they're difficult to understand. So, but that is not to say that we just need to accept that, it needs to be delved into. I'm just, when I'm looking at the areas that we have to actually try and control, payroll, sped, it's, special education costs are, you know, right along with that. Jessica, anything else from an expense standpoint?
Those are our big ones.
Okay. Revenue. So we will be owed some, withheld funds from the state.
Apparently, it's optional that they pay us back, but my understanding is that they do typically. That being said, it's already accounted for in the cash flow sheet.
Okay, but if we're isolating the things that we're trying to achieve, how much is that?
Approximately 24,000 next month, and we should get it in February if they give it to us.
And that's all
Yes.
that was with this 24K?
Yes.
Okay, what other revenue?
From the state.
No, just overall.
We've got projected approximately 7,000 a month for private. I sent out the email over the weekend that aftercare is gonna be auto-bill now, and people need to be caught up. So hopefully that will help with that. We get, for the 301, the non-bonus money, so for the salaries in the classroom fund, 8,800 a month.
But that's just gonna happen, right? I mean, so it's, what are things on the revenue side? So, I mean, the 24K, because it's not actually guaranteed, so that's something to watch for. The 88, that's a fee for service, right? I mean, do we have that enrollment?
That's not, I don't know how they come up with that number, but that is just, we get that every month. I don't know where where the state comes up with that dollar, it's the 301
Sorry,
funds.
private pay,
The 7,000 for
7,000.
private.
yeah.
I don't have it broken out by private early childhood versus aftercare. So I could get that for you, but I don't have it broken out that way. That's not the way we did it when we put that together.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking that. I'm saying, is our enrollment to that amount? Not what it is, but is it,
That's what I'm saying. You just gave me a number and that's what I put in there. I have not added the number of students.
has it been running that way for the last couple of months?
Yes. It has. I've been collecting some of the past due, and we're getting about 10, so I think the 7,200 is a appropriate number.
That's good that someone brought that up, right?
So,
Are people gonna have their services discontinued if they're not paying?
Yeah.
I saw the email go out, I just wasn't sure by the wording of it if that.
that was just for the aftercare. Once we get that set up, we'll do the other one as well.
Okay,
So probably a week or two later.
okay.
So I have been working on the significantly past due, and that is going about as well as you can expect. We are trying to collect revenue from, in some cases, 2018.
Which is just last year. Because that was part of last school year.
No, some of the dates are December of 2018.
That's last school year.
Okay. So yeah, so how can you prove that I owe this? Can you prove that my kid went to this?
Yes, we can.
I contacted the school on 3 occasions to try and deal with this, and no one got back to me. And so, working through that, but I am gonna put, I should look at a couple other things, but we'd be lucky to get 25% of that.
And I have access to all the old communications because most of them came from me. So if there are people that are saying that, if you send me their info, I can send you all that.
They've sent it to me. The ones who have made that point, they've sent me copies of emails that they
Okay.
tried to do it. But I don't know if that helps, other than,
We've got the sign in and sign out sheets for everything last year, so.
okay.
And in the future, it's gonna be like, there's a hard line starting, would you say the 25th though?
The 27th for us, I think.
So then, in the future, if
It
they
won't.
can't get backed up, they won't get services
Correct.
for like the aftercare that you were trying out, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So at least for the future goal, it should
Yeah.
even out. I think part of that it seemed like anyways, that the parents were really wanting that consistent payment, so they'll probably, I know it works well for my home budget with using auto pay for things that are coming out on a consistent day that I
But
can budget
still,
for.
like,
so.
I've sent emails out on January 1st for December, and my kid wasn't there. I've got your signature right here. I mean, so it's a challenge no matter how you, we're looking to bill, or trying to implement a process to bill the drop-in aftercare on a weekly basis, so there's not as much of a chance to get behind it.
Okay. Good idea.
Okay, so our goals are to what? increase our ratio by a certain percentage every month, with an ultimate goal to be at something at the end of this particular period. Sorry. Do we want to increase our cash health by a certain percentage every month? So if we show in January that our cash health is at 11,000, do we want to, every month, do we want to do 2,000 or 3,000 to increase our cash health? What do we want to do?
I'm sorry, I'm not fully understanding. 11,000 in the bank, 11,000 over in the black, I mean, what are you, I'm not understanding, I'm sorry.
Okay. When we communicate our financial progress or our financial position, what are we communicating?
Our profit and loss and our balance sheet.
Right. But we've announced that we have a financial crisis, so what are we communicating in the financial crisis? Do we want to just give updates? Do we want to show that we had this target and we got here, we missed it, or we didn't do? What are we doing?
I can certainly do whatever you like. I was just presenting information as it had been in the past.
I'm sorry, that question is just not to you, it's
Okay.
to everyone. Do we see any value instead of the sky is falling, and here's where we're going, this is our goal, here's our progress towards the goal. Please help by, paying your aftercare bills in a more timely manner. We're looking to do this and tell people about our tax credit, so we can give people something that we're to aim for versus, does that make sense?
I agree with all of that. I mean, I like saying, this is our goal, this is what we're aiming for.
Okay.
This is the progress we've made. What I don't feel like I can contribute to is to put a number on that, because I honestly don't know what's realistic. I don't know what's been done in the
Got it.
past, with
Okay.
donations, so I can't give you a feasible number. I mean, ideally, we want to make it through the year and,
Right.
but I don't know what has been done before, so I have no history to base a number on.
That's my fault, I'm not being clear. Do we want our goals to be around, cash on hand? Do we want our goals to be around, past due bills paid? Do we want our goals to be around, an increase in revenue in one spot? And the answer could be yes to all of those.
Right, but the past due, if you're still choosing people in there, I mean, I can't get blood out of a turnip kind of thing. I'd be focusing on in the future and them not getting that far past due. It's just like anywhere else. I mean, you would have to pay for childcare services if you're getting them. Ideally, you're paying for the month, in front of you.
Right.
Then that way, if you stop, you need to give your 30 days written notice. I don't know if that's legal here, but I'm just saying, that's what other places do. Then that way, they're not out, snacks and time paid by someone who's there providing that high quality service, and then, oh, sorry, we can't afford to pay, because that is a bummer, but there are plenty of people who don't get those services and use aunts and grandmas and uncles and swapping, back and forth with neighbors. So I don't think that we should offer that as a service anymore. Like, if you can't pay, you can't come, kind of a thing.
Right.
And that probably sounds really mean, but we also need money, so.
Right.
So Clayton, getting back to the kind of bigger picture message to the community that you were suggesting. Since we've said in so many words, we have a financial crisis going on right now, I think explaining in some detail, on a monthly basis at least, the status of that and the steps we've taken to correct it and where we are now would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying, what do we include in that? And I think it's, well, kind of, a one paragraph thing that says, this is our cash on hand, these are our projected expenses, and this is our projected revenue, and we improved those numbers by X percent over the last month. Next month, we're hoping to do X percent better.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But not maybe something to explain, but an actual graph.
Yeah.
But something visual that everyone can see.
Right.
Okay. All right. So, and please chime in. I'm thinking that we measure cash on hand, the past due progress is paying the expenses, like what did we project and how well did we do? And then the past due collected. And then from a revenue standpoint, and this is new revenue or unexpected revenue, or project, like if we say, we think we're gonna get this 24,000, did we get it? So,
Donations that
right,
come in.
Tax credits?
the donations and tax credits.
What is the fundraising for the
We are sending out thank you letters, on a kind of a rolling basis, and I really did that on the go. I
I didn't
did,
hear back from any of them.
yeah, I sent a bunch, I also didn't hear back.
Not the phone calls or the anything either.
Yeah, but in terms of like additional asks, we haven't done that. We have the entire parent directory now to work with. And I think the next good step would be sending out a, one-page letter to everybody that we know is associated with a student at the school and saying, this is our situation, we really need help. Can you help? Can you refer people who can help? That sort of thing.
Have we been working on the tax credits at all since,
What do you mean?
whatever, trying to get them?
I mean, yeah, that's one of the asks in this letter that we've been sending out is, you can still donate, please refer people who can donate.
Okay. So a simple dashboard, has some graphs, little language
Yeah.
that we push out. I mean, we're still gonna do what we do from the financial reporting at the board, but just for the community to put on, Parent Square, whatever community, whatever goes out to the community, we'll just have that. So we're all good with that.
I think people would like to know.
Okay.
I think I would like to see a number as well as a percentage.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like if you told me, oh, we made this much, I don't have that math mind, I'd just be like, what? But I know how much, $17,000 is, so
Yeah.
that makes sense to me.
Right. And the paragraph will just talk through that so people can understand the relationship between those. But I just think that we should be presenting a message that is more about, here's where we want to go, here's how we're getting there. And then we didn't get where we needed to be, or, we missed this projection or this happened, and we can talk in broader terms that because we want to communicate with everyone, and so if you can't read a balance sheet, then it doesn't make sense.
I think we need to be really careful about our language too around the past due fees, private, kinder, and whatever, because I've been a part of a couple of conversations lately where parents they had like a card on file and auto pay just stopped and they
Right.
had no idea.
Yeah.
And when they checked in, they were immediately like, oh yeah, sure, here's my card, pay up, whatever. So in that situation, it was kind of like it wasn't their fault, they didn't know, and
Right.
they
Yeah, or you get a new debit card and
and
it has like a
they,
new.
yeah, and they were
expiration date.
rather, kind of upset when sort of they heard that, oh, we're really trying to, make sure these past due fees are paid, and they're like, this wasn't my fault, and I had no idea, I didn't get an invoice or whatever, so I know we have parents on kind of, opposite spectrums of that for aftercare and stuff, so I think we just need to be very careful about our wording, so that we're not accusatory.
So April's gonna help me with the language.
I will check it for you with my red pen, please.
Okay. Anyone have anything else?
When will we know, because today's the 100th day,
Mm-hmm.
when will we get like an idea on the hopefully improvement between the 40th day and the 100th day?
Jean's working on that, right?
I have some raw numbers.
Okay.
As a hopefully subject. It
Okay,
is
good.
a vast improvement. It's really
Because
exciting.
I know that will directly correlate to more funds.
Yes.
Okay.
I heard
So-
really great things about Hopper Day. My whole
Okay.
carpool was a buzz about it. They just
Well,
loved it.
and all of the classes had a great time. I mean, the high school classes had a good time helping out the little ones, and it was so cute to see. And then, like 7th and 8th grade had their first and second grade buddies, and then they had lunch together too, regardless of talk about it. I mean, it was great. And then they had a lot of field day activities, and yeah, it seemed to be really well received, and the kiddos were excited, and we did have an uptick in attendance, and overall, not just on this day, but since we started putting that out there, that attendance is really important, and it directly impacts funding, not only on a daily basis, but on those 3 important points.
Yeah,
where we want to
right.
have that day.
We want you here every day.
Yeah,
Not all
exactly,
day. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh,
So we've
okay.
really seen an uptick.
So to bring this back into our dashboard conversation, so we don't violate the agenda rules, is that something that we can measure or we could show?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, like I said, I already have our numbers from the end of today, or from today, compared to where we were last 100th day.
Right.
And also an average of where, before we started advertising the importance of the attendance on the 4100th and last day as it relates to funding, those communications were starting to be pushed out, October, November?
So if it was something that we wanted to include as part of this dashboard that we're gonna push out monthly, how hard is that to do?
It's not hard at all. I can provide you with an average of where we went. For instance, when we started the school year, we were averaging, we had attendance absences from the lowest was 8, which is rare and okay, but we were between 15 and 28
Okay,
on a daily basis.
okay.
And that's not including credit. So now we're down, and our tardies have decreased tremendously, over a third. So yes, we can report on that.
So, and so when I say how easy is it, you can push a button.
We
And
can
print it
run
out.
reports in Schoolmaster.
Okay.
Yeah, Tammy and Nina can do that.
That might
And
be
like I said, I
good.
have some raw numbers, and I'm putting together a general communication.
Okay. All right, great. Anything else on that? All right, so I will put together, a dashboard for you guys to look at. Just, it's not gonna have the actual stuff in it, it's just the look, the look and feel of it. April's gonna help me with the language, and, hopefully, if all goes well, we'll be able to roll it out at our next board meeting. Okay?
Is it gonna consistently like come out around the time of the board meeting? Or what do you foresee that?
Yeah, but because it'll be based on the financials, so it'll be, yeah, it'll be around the time of the board meeting. I don't know that we could do it on a more regular basis, or any sooner than that. Yeah, no, it'd have to be once a month, probably around the board meeting. Yeah. So we all set with that agenda item?
One other issue on that, since we apparently have a well of past due payments,
Mhm.
is there anything in our bylaws or functional documents or anything that prevents us from selling bad debt to collection agencies for a few pennies on the dollar?
No, there isn't, but I would strongly recommend against that. Because as I have delved into, because I've been the one doing the collections, it is absolutely, positively, the responsibility rests with the person who received the service and didn't pay for it. But there's so much mitigation in that, there was an agreement that you were gonna charge the card, and the card wasn't charged. There was hey, I got this invoice, I can't pay, $1,500, someone get a hold of me, let's make some arrangements to do this, and then nothing. I mean, so, I think that what you would lose in community goodwill would far outweigh what you could get from a collection agency. That's just my,
Are you some benefits when you talk to people,
no.
Do you think that still holds true even for, and I don't even know, are there people who have left the school who still have a significant outstanding debt? I mean,
I have not come across, because I started with the big numbers, and I have not come across anyone who has left the school.
Okay.
I've come across people who no longer use that service, so the threat of, we're gonna take the service away doesn't really exist.
Right.
I had come across people who, had said, okay, listen, this is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make this payment, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do, and so I have those notes about who agreed to do what. But it's not, it means not a tremendous amount of money.
Okay.
It really isn't a tremendous amount of money. It's not a fun thing to do, so.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, because I understand their pain, but, on the other side, you did receive the service, so. When we get down to, after I've heard back from everyone, I may come back to the board and recommend that we do some settlements and just say, okay, we're just gonna call it even for this amount.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that would be better than you get from a
Oh, sure.
Right. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay.
Sorry, did we, other than sending out progress reports on various items, I don't think we set a specific goal for this year.
So I'm gonna build the template,
Yeah.
and then we can build the template just to show the current state. And then we can talk about what we think the goals are, because it's hard to pull a goal out and say, we're gonna do 3%, we're gonna do 4%.
Yeah.
But if we build the template and we can show where we are in relation to, we can show where we are and then just say, okay, well, we think that we can get here based on, because we're forecasting months and months in advance, so.
The goal is higher transparency with the community beyond the exact financial situation that we're in.
Yeah, the goal,
If you're gonna put that out every month, that's.
yeah, the goal is to, to communicate something that's tangible for the community, so they can see these different levers and how they're, and just see how they live in real time, right, from month to month. our cash on hand was this, we did this, we did that. Here's the additional revenue sources that we're working on, or, we had an uptick in donations, we had an uptick in tax credits, we had, we collected this much from the past due, so this is how we're progressing forward.
This is how the increased attendance entries are.
Well, this is how our attendance is flowing, and then understand, because we don't see that, that's the problem with attendance, is that it comes and gets you like 6 months later,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
But it's still, I mean, doing it now is gonna pay us later.
Right. And if it's easy enough to pull that data, would be great to be able to report it.
I mean, I can report today that we only had 8 absences from K through 12. Across the whole school, 8 absences.
That's great.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. So I'll build this template and get it out. Next, we have on the agenda is the second town hall. Christie, that's yours.
It is mine. Given the discussion though that has occurred, I don't feel like there's much form yet in terms of providing a date for the second town hall. The scope of the second town hall would be providing more transparency to the community beyond the buildings. So yes, we have folks who come, but we're not. I'm getting feedback that they can't come. They want to get that information. They want to be able to get a better understanding. So, and from all realms, including the board, LBC, administration, and when I say leadership, I mean LBC and administration. So we were thinking it would be maybe productive to have a few board members. Obviously, we can't have everybody, but a few board members, along with the LBC and myself, to have a second town hall in the spring. We would do it as a modified Q&A because we suspect that there's a lot of questions right now, and we want to be able to give information as best as possible and the most informative as possible in the most efficient way. So we were thinking of saying, yes, it will be a Q&A, but if possible, submit questions in advance so that we can prepare our answers and feel like we are being the most informative. Obviously, there's going to be some folks who have some questions on the fly, but this is really, I asked for this to be on the agenda just to get a dialogue going, get some thoughts about how best to answer the questions that we're receiving individually and put it more out there as a cohesive group, and really hopefully alleviate some concerns and project forward where we're going. And with the discussion tonight of, we're going to do this dashboard and really kind of solidify this, I guess I'm probably getting ahead of myself and saying you'd be prepared for a town hall in February, but maybe not. So I just wanted to put it out there and solicit some board officers or members to work with the LVC and myself to have that second town hall. This would be a town hall because it literally would be focused on kind of the more pressing overall community school-wide issues, concerns like finances. So we wouldn't have 2 separate town halls between high school and the rest. This would be more of one overall evening.
Okay.
I'm happy to pitch in this meeting.
I think
I feel like the treasurer should, I didn't want to volunteer. Thank you.
I think that so you were shooting for February, you said?
Well, there's so much going on in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting ready to do your budget for next year. We're evaluating hiring and intentions and scheduling, programming, all of that stuff. So there is a lot of going on. There's a lot of moving parts, but I just feel like the feedback that I'm getting from community members is it would be important to hear from the board and the LBC collectively to answer some questions about where we're going, where we're at and where we're going.
Okay. I think February is good enough,
I think our next board meeting is
the 19th.
19th. So, the end of February, after the next board meeting, maybe we
Sure.
can make some progress in terms of the dashboard and overall reporting.
Right. One of the things that, and I'm not sure if I sent this out to the board, we're talking about transparency, is that on the board site, in the portal, there's an option to put other documents. And so I think it would be a good idea to just start putting all the documents that happen, that come in reports there. So people who can't make the meetings, at least, they can go and see that documentation along with the minutes.
I think if you're gonna be sending out that, I already forgot what you called it.
Dashboard.
Dashboard.
Uh-huh.
If you're gonna be sending that out regularly, if you could add like the board page, I think a lot of community members just don't even know where to, I mean, I've
Oh,
had
I see.
parents ask me like, well, what's on the agenda? And I'm thinking, well, just go on the website. And
Yeah.
they're like, what website? And then I say, well, you can look at the minutes, all the minutes are there. And they go,
Right.
what minutes? So I think we just need to just, stick it on there every single month so that people get used to looking, and then they can, start doing it on their own and send other people there. Because this isn't information I feel like a lot of the community thinks it's, we're hiding information. It's all right there. They can read these minutes, they can look at the agenda, they just aren't aware. So
Right.
we just put it out there every month. This is where you can find information.
Well, and then we can also create some shortcuts, and so you can do, like boardpacket.dms.org, and it takes you straight there, because I think it's the case with most nonprofits on their boards, on their web pages. The board isn't the thing that's really out in front, and you have to kind of hunt for it, and it's not really that easy to find. So for people who are looking for it, if you could just provide that shortcut so that they can get there and they always know where they're going, I think that'd be a really good idea. Okay, so you're gonna try and, you're tentatively shooting for the end of February for this. Okay. When will you know for sure that you're gonna do it, or that you're not gonna do it?
Well, we're going to do it, it's just I want to be able to work with the
Okay,
board
so
members
it's-
who would be, and officers who would be willing to
Okay,
join us.
okay,
And then I want to be able to have enough time to advertise, notify the community, solicit their questions, and, one of the things we learned from the first town hall is that getting those questions in writing and then being able to say, okay, there's these 8 questions that relatively ask the same thing, how can we best answer all of them in one answer? It's
Right.
just helpful for efficiency, but certainly don't want to deprive anyone of being able to ask questions. So we're just trying another model from that.
okay.
So I want to have enough time to pick a date, advertise for it, and solicit questions so that we have enough time to prepare for it so we can educate the community as best as possible.
Okay.
I could give you a couple suggestions based on things that I heard.
Wonderful.
So the feedback that I got was people were really disappointed that they didn't get to ask live questions and get live answers. Well, they were getting live answers, but not to their specific question. So I would suggest setting a deadline to submit questions and then collecting them so that you can prepare and you know what you're getting on that end, and then posting the questions that you've already received online.
Okay.
No answers, just the questions, so that people know some general topics that they're going to hear about.
Okay, my concern's covered.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, as far as actually doing the event, maybe switching back and forth between, we have a planned question now, and now we're going to take a live question from the audience, so people, you're getting that engagement that I think the community is craving. Not just, okay, and the next question is, now let's talk about it, which is really more of a panel discussion town hall Q&A.
Mhm.
So I think that was the feedback that I got.
Appreciate that.
If you're looking for a simple way to get those questions in, that Google form I did for the Marigold experience, that was
Yes.
really easy to do. And I keep getting
Are you still getting responses?
answers. I mean, it's not overwhelming,
Mhm.
but it was so easy to do, and people can do it at any time. I mean, it takes 2 seconds to type it in and you're done.
Okay. You're willing to
I'll help you.
that? Okay.
I was waiting for it. I'll help you.
Okay, so I have Jessica Gregory.
Yes, I'd be happy to be there. Well,
I'd like to do another, we can only have how many? 4. Yeah, 4.
Mr. Tanner will be there.
Well, he'll be on behalf of the LDC
But
and
he's
the
still
board,
on the
so
board.
yes. So that's 3.
I'll do it.
Okay, excellent. I hope all the other board members are able to attend as well,
Then you have a quorum, sorry.
but only in the community, not speaking, right? They can still
No.
attend as parents, no?
Well, you can. They can't speak, you're right.
Correct.
I'll be quiet.
Okay. All right, so, are you gonna schedule something to meet, or we're gonna
I
do
will
this?
circulate some dates, just to
Okay.
make sure there's no
Okay.
conflict among those in part of the panel.
But I mean, in preparation, are you gonna have a meeting, or we're gonna do it via email, or?
We can start via email, try to be efficient and
Yeah, love that
sensitive to
answer.
all of your
Love that
schedules.
answer, yes.
Okay.
Would you put out a document afterwards, I could read?
Of course, oh yeah, of course.
Because I mean, if there's other people who can't attend also, who feel
Okay,
bummed
you
that
can
there's
expect.
No, no, it's all right, I'm just like
You
wondering
can't
though. If there's, you know, a scheduling conflict for them, I'd still probably love to hear what's talked
Of
about.
course, yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll start that, thank you.
All right, our next agenda item is history and current state of leadership and management transition. I'd like to invite Julie Curtin into the board meeting. As I indicated in an earlier email, I invited Julie, Heather, and Jimmy to come, and the other 2 slackers didn't make it. I'm kidding, they had conflicts. So that we could, because they were part of this process since the beginning, and I just wanted to get as much historical support and perspective about the transition of our management here at DMS. So I'm going to start, and Julie or Jessica jump in and correct me if I say something that's out of sequence. We started this process when we needed to, we needed an interim management because we had an abrupt change in leadership, and so we needed someone to come in and do some interim management work for us, and we asked Christy to join us to do that. We gave her some very specific tasks of what she was supposed to do during that interim period to get us out of, there were a number of HR issues that were going on that needed to be managed, and so she helped us through that. And then when we got things, when those issues settled down, we decided that it was a really good opportunity to take a overall look at the structure of the school and use this opportunity to put together a plan of management that would support and respond to all of the needs of the stakeholders, and the stakeholders being the students, the staff, and the community. So during that process, we put together and I'm gonna get these acronyms right, please correct me, a transitional work team, or TPC.
TPC.
Right, well, so you had your transitional work planning committee, that was the board.
That was the
and
board,
policy.
right,
That was Clayton
You
and
had your
Heather.
transition planning committee, which was the faculty.
which was
and
the
administration.
faculty.
But that came after.
Correct.
Right, so the
Right, so you
board,
started with Clayton and Heather.
Right.
so the
And Drew.
board, yeah.
And Drew, sorry,
yes.
thank you. Mhm.
So the committee for the board was charged with going around to each one of these groups and gathering information and gathering data to say, okay, what would you like? Where are the gaps? What do you see? And so we collected all of this information from all of these different groups, put it together in this report.
And you also went outside of the community. You met
That's
with
right.
Peter Rennick and Joan Treadaway.
That's right.
I'm not sure if any other you would know better than I.
Well, we got perspective from
Cheryl LeBlanc
up
up in Sedona.
yes.
Mhm. Whatever.
Cornville.
Cornville, thank you.
Um,
But not just within the DMS community.
and we had a couple sessions with Charlie as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, to get perspective from Charlie. So we gathered all of that information up, summarized it, and we provided it to a staff committee, the Transitional Planning Committee, to work on. So the important thing to understand about the work that we did as a board is that, again, the board, we identified the priorities of the stakeholders, meaning this is what they said that they needed. This is what they would like to see in the management structure. And so we highlighted those priorities before we gave the information off to the TPC. And the TPC is supposed to work on the management structure to be implemented as a result of all of that work in that reporting. So the first thing to come from the TPC, you correct me if I'm wrong, is the LDC. First thing to come from the TPC is the LDC, which addressed two priorities that were that we determined in the work group, which was curriculum. And so there was a lot of discussion around the curriculum needed to, not only that needed to be consistent with Waldorf education, and also it needed to take into consideration the state standard. So that's what the LDC came together. So that was one of the priorities. And then the other priority that the LDC was supposed to address was the need for teachers and the teachers to be more involved in the setting of the curriculum and in the come together as a team and supporting each other.
With a better communication flow. That's absolutely correct, with a
Yeah.
better communication flow. Because
Yeah.
one of the biggest criticisms of the previous administration was that the faculty did not feel that they had a voice.
Correct.
Right.
So if I could just add.
Absolutely, yeah.
Before you move on, because it's within what you want.
Okay.
So that you're correct that the transition planning work group, which is the board group, they met with all of the stakeholders, gathered that feedback. The transition planning committee was created to help with that communication frustration, that they felt like they didn't have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted, in order to ensure that all realms were represented, the transition planning committee created criteria by which faculty could serve on that committee. And that included highly qualified,
Are you talking about the LDC?
no.
Okay.
I'm talking about the TPC. The TPC members were representative of all of the realms,
Mhm.
specialties, high schools,
Right.
SPED, grades, early childhood. We had representation from every realm to ensure that all realms had a voice and had input on the curriculum and where they wanted the school to go in terms of an organizational structure that better suited and supported our faculty.
Right.
So the major consensus among the roles after your work, after the board's work, was they wanted to have some more responsibility, direct responsibility for the curriculum. The pedagogy, making sure that our faculty and staff were meeting the benchmarks for qualified educators. So, and they wanted to be involved in the hiring. They didn't want it to be so administrative heavy. They wanted that input to ensure that they were hiring peers and colleagues who were committed not only to the pedagogy, but also the state standards to educate the children. They shifted the goal. I shouldn't say it that way because I don't mean to sound disparaging, because I'm not. They wanted to focus on every decision, what is in the best interest of the students, and then we would fill in the blanks from there. So that is the group that was originally created. That is not what evolved into the LDC. The LDC, the Transition Planning Committee created the criteria by which the organizational structure would be formed. That's where the LDC came from, the Leadership and Development Council. Those committee members, the council members, the LDC members were voted on by their peers within their realms to ensure complete fairness and transparency. With the goal, again, focusing on having a voice, making sure that the curriculum is in line with pedagogy, making sure that the teachers have the resources, professional development they need in order to serve the best interests of the students. So I just wanted to add that to where we went from forming the transition planning work group on the board and then passing it off to the TPC.
Okay. So, and as we spoke last week, some of the goals that Christy included in her report reference some of the things that you just talked about, like the teachers are meet a certain criteria. There was a goal in there about measuring and holding accountable. That's a strong word, but it's something along the lines of testing and outcomes. And so those goals were born from the work that the TPC did.
Yours are
And yes, yeah, right.
It was a collaborative
Well,
effort.
but it was, we gave you the raw data, and you came out with that. So I tell this long story to say that there was, all of this was part of a process to develop a new management structure for the school. And so I continually say the transition because it is still a transition, it is not over. Some of the other priorities that came out of the work that the board did was fundraising and development. That has been on the radar for a number of years. How does that fit into the management structure and, outreach and community engagement? There are two other things that came out of the work that we did that was a priority, and obviously financial management is something that was high up on the priority list, and then finally organizational management or operations. And I always use the phrase as someone who helps a train run on time. It's just the nuts and bolts of the operation of the school. So,
Facilities,
yes, well, and
unless you're lumping that in with operations.
Well-
Because that was always discussed as well.
yeah, facilities and,
Work shed, all the, what are we doing at the high school
Site.
space? Yeah.
yeah,
Site committee,
right.
that's what I mean when I say
Right.
facilities.
So, did I miss anything? Is there anything you,
Not yet.
okay.
I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, if you guys are okay with that. Okay?
So again, so there's still work to do in the transition, I guess is the point that I am making, and it is, the question is what is the next step? What is the next move? What do we do now to address the priorities that were determined when we started the transition? What is the direction that we give to the staff?
Do you think that your board clearly understands what the goals of the executive director are at this time? Do you think that everyone
That's a good question.
truly understands what Christie's responsibilities are and her expectations are? Is everyone aware of her job description?
We were made aware of the job description recently.
Yeah, we did talk about the goals for the executive director just a couple of weeks ago, or last week.
Right,
Feels like 2 weeks ago.
yeah.
But I'm talking more about her as well as her job description, which is more of a day-to-day. The goals, I think I look at that as in addition to a job description. I have a job description at my work, but I also have goals that I work towards above and beyond that are encompassing what I do, but are also a reach.
Trying to remember the last time I got the job description, and it's been a while, so.
I think I sent it, I can resend it.
You just sent it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I guess what are next steps? And Christy, from you, what do you feel the next steps are?
Short term is to fulfill the goals that were discussed at the last board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
The job description is available, everyone can see what the essential job functions have been identified as.
So you
And
think
I don't
the
know
next
what you're
step-
asking.
What's the next step for the school and the whole organization and school district?
I can't answer that by myself in my position. What I
Okay.
can say is that it has been a work in progress and changed takes time. And when you completely revamp an organizational structure from top to bottom, bottom to top, it takes time. And people are learning in the process, and this is a really unique organization. And the organizational structure that has evolved from all of the board's work and the transition planning committee's work, and quite frankly, all of the faculty and staff's work in hearing them out and hearing what they need in order to be successful in serving the students. It's a process. And it has been, it takes time, but it's also, I don't want to say it hasn't been derailed, it's just been made more slow because of the other internal realm reorganizations, such as the administration organization.
High school.
Well, and the high school reorganization. And so it's just taking time, and that is part of the evolution of the developing and implementing a new organizational structure. Is you can anticipate all that you can, but you can't anticipate everything. So I think just simply, it's just gonna take a little bit more time. The LDC is continuing to solidify and form and structure in terms of setting interim timelines for programming, academic calendaring, performance evaluations, professional development. And it just, you need to give people time in order to improve, to address those issues, to determine whether we have the right staff and faculty for the students. I mean, I can go on, and I don't mean to ramble, but there's just a lot of factors.
I would agree that organizational change takes time. I mean, there's
Change
a,
management is frustrating.
and change management takes time to do. But we're at a place now where, okay, so we have the LDC, and they're doing their work, and they're involved in the evolution of that particular discipline, which is around curriculum and teachers and staff management. But on the other side of the organization, we have a gap in financial management. We have a gap in community outreach and business development or fund development. And we have a gap in some of our operational strategies operational priorities that we determine. So when I say, well, what are the next steps? And the next step can't be, we're going to continue to work and evolve in this one discipline. What about these other disciplines that are highly necessary for us to continue? Because this discipline is not sustainable without these other two or three.
Absolutely. One of the impediments to that in filling those gaps is going to be looking at our overall financial viability and improving it from the bottom. And that is what we've been working on for quite some time. And we can only go up from here, but we're limited in filling those gaps right now because we don't have the financial ability due to the other things that we've had to take and put as a priority to fill those gaps in administration, operations, finance. So it really goes back to, again, the overarching goal, which is the board's goals of what is your priority? Where do you want to focus?
Well, the absence of money suggests that financial management should take kind of front and center stage so that we can get some money and solve some of these problems.
Well, but it's two-pronged. So, I mean, we focus on we need to get money, we need to manage better what we have.
Yeah,
That's what,
Yeah.
So, because we can pour money in, but if we don't have the controls around to manage it, then that's not gonna help.
I agree.
Okay.
But what I'm hearing from our discussion a little bit earlier in the evening is we've identified most of the holes and we've plugged as many as we can, and there's not a whole lot more that we can plug. So it seems like we have the expenses we have and we need some revenue to make up the difference.
I'm going to go back to that discussion. We've identified our major expenses. I would not say that we have plugged all of those holes. Yeah, I would not say that.
No, I don't think we're 100% there.
Right.
It sounds like we're hitting diminishing returns
Okay.
on what we're able to,
Yeah,
in terms of time investment.
right.
And you were saying that you know, we have these past due payments, but it's
Yeah.
not a substantial number, and it's very time consuming to talk people through this and reach something where they would actually agree to pay it.
Right, right.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
May I say something?
Oh, sure.
Earlier you spoke about payroll being your number one expense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not sure tonight, and I was last week at the meeting, but I'm not a part of your conversations elsewhere. That to me would be the largest area that you have for money savings. So when you're looking at getting blood from a turnip, and I know you're all trying, you may get something, but you're not gonna be able to get that 17 grand a month from past due fees. So what controls are in place from the executive director, because that's her realm, to control that and change that? And have you identified what your savings will be on a monthly basis if you actually have people punching in and out properly and working the amount of hours that they've been hired and budgeted to do? Has anyone worked those numbers? Because to me, that is your most obvious cash savings that you have available to you right now. It's not gonna cost you anything, you're not asking anybody to do anything special, you're just asking them to do their job in the time allotted, that we've allotted them to do it. I say we loosely, I still say we.
I haven't worked the numbers, but I know, and you can expand, that very recently, adjustments have been made to the ability to punch in and out outside of their scheduled time, like they can't do it anymore. But I haven't done the math on what that's saving, but I believe Clayton did approximate.
I did. And the controls that are in place don't allow you on one side of that transaction, so you can't punch in early. But you can punch out late. It creates an exception, but it still allows you to punch out, so.
Who's managing the exceptions?
Well, again, as Jessica just said, the control for that has just recently been put in place with this scheduling thing.
We have a new payroll system that allows us to better track, put in those exceptions, and make, I don't want to go and entertain any discussion about HR issues, but our new reporting system allows us to take appropriate disciplinary action. We still have to pay those people for the hours that they are worked, but we are now having reporting to enable us to hold people accountable who work outside of those parameters.
And that's just the hourly.
Yeah. Yeah. Where were we in the conversation? No, before that.
Great.
We were talking about the direction.
Right. So what we have going now is not sustainable and it's not scalable. I mean, I think we should just say that up front, that what we are doing and how we are operating on a day-to-day basis is not something that can be sustained long-term. So our goal should be to get out of this particular situation. And I'm going to come back to when we talked last week. I think doing that is financial management is critical to that. Is the critical first step in getting out of this process. Getting out of the situation where we are.
Does the board feel comfortable with the goals to get you through the end of this year financially? I mean, that was discussed earlier. I'm just curious if there's a consensus on that. You know, John brought up, do we have enough to sustain, or April, I forget who said it. Do we have enough to sustain through the end of the year? do you feel as a board that you can actually survive through the end of June? And then what is your vision for 2021? And when I say vision, I think of not financially what your vision is, but what's your organizational structure vision? Do you want to start that year with an acting executive director, or do you want to reassess that? Because you need to start looking long-term, if you're not already, and I know you have been, the board always was. We were always talking about it. I didn't mean we were perfectly envisioned with it or all on the same page, but we were always talking about it. Because it's the end of January. So it's easy to get caught up in where we are right now and buried in the financial mess that the school is in, but you've got to deal with that financial mess and still look ahead and make plans for that to happen, or you're not going to go where you want to go.
I would still make the argument that it is trying to figure out how to say this. What we need for the management of the school does not live in one person. Right? It doesn't, there's no magic person who's gonna come and be fundraiser, financial, outreach, operational, curriculum. It's just not gonna exist in one person. So when I'm asking the questions, what are the next steps? And I'm asking Christy, what are the next steps? So right now we have a situation, and I know that money is an issue, but we have you as the acting executive director, as an administrative staff, and then we have Tammy. And then we have all this other stuff that needs to be done. We have the financial work that needs to be done. We have the human resources that needs to be done. We have the recruitment that needs to be done. We have the compliance that needs to be done. We have the overall management of all of the staff and the teachers that needs to be done. Then you're one person. Okay. So, what I'm asking the board, and I am asking you, is that what are our next steps? Or are we just gonna keep going until we magically have more money? Are we gonna actively work to manage and control the finances that we have and say, okay, so we're gonna do this so that we can afford to do this, so we can afford to do that, and fill these gaps, right? What are we gonna do?
If you want my evaluation,
Yes,
putting aside the finances,
yes,
just say we needed to round out the organizational structure, okay? Not considering whether we have money to do so,
right,
okay? I agree with you that there is not one person who holds the skill set to do everything that you just described.
okay,
We have gaps. We have someone in whatever you want to call it, whether you change the title or not. And then, again, this is my perspective, okay, my evaluation based on my experience, not only of this organization, but also my career experience. This organization currently right now, you want to call it the executive director, keep it at that. That person has a very different skill set than the person you're going to need to go out and develop market outreach.
mm-hmm,
You have another group who can handle the curriculum,
mm-hmm,
the performance management, the professional development, ensuring that we have the best faculty to serve our students. And that is right now the LDC,
mm-hmm,
okay? So you've got that piece. You have gaps in administration in terms of those other areas you described.
mm-hmm,
You need an executive director, headmaster, whatever you want to call that role, to do the operations, the compliance, to be the contact person for the state, for the charter board. I mean, if I could describe my day to you in terms of dealing with compliance issues today, it's a very different skill set than someone who can go out and educate the community and bring in students. So there's your gap. And so ideally, I think you need to create and round out your leadership with an extra position, another position, to handle that piece of it. Whether you call it a development director, manager, whatever you want to call it.
Would there be an additional person to do fundraising type stuff? Or would there be that person who would also, ideally, because if it's outreach, like, we still need.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of skill sets, and so
Yeah.
I just, you know, someone who has the expertise in compliance operations, it's gonna be very difficult to find someone who has that plus the ability and the time commitment to go out and do that marketing, the fundraising, the outreach. I think that those three pieces could be in one position. But again, this is just my feedback. I can't make these decisions. That's up to the board. I mean, this role, as I understand it, cannot create new jobs without the board approving it and determining where those gaps are and what the job description should be. So it needs to be collaborative, which is why it can't just be an executive director, acting executive director decision or goal. It has to be collaborative based on this current structure. Does that answer your question from my perspective in terms of the evaluation that I've seen?
Yes. Yes, and I think we've had that discussion before.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does the board feel about that?
I agree, I think we need, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think we need more people to fill these holes, but with our budget constraints, I mean, it's just this catch-22. It's like, you know, what do we do? Do we, you know, focus on fundraising efforts, and then if so, we bring in money, where does that money go? Are we paying our day-to-day, or are we hiring people, or are we, like, it's just such a, I just feel stuck between a rock and a hard place, because I know that we need more staff to fill these holes organizationally. We don't have the money, and I don't, as a new board member, I don't know the history of what has worked and what hasn't worked in the past regarding these roles, regarding fundraising. So, I mean, all I can do is just kind of share my opinion. I mean, from my standpoint, the first thing I want to do is research. I want to go talk to other schools. I want to go talk to people who are fundraising experts and say, what have you done? What works for you? How do you bring money in? And start there, because I didn't, you know, I don't know what our fundraising plan is. I haven't seen any, you know, overarching plan. All I know is the progress reports we get on a monthly basis. I feel very out of the loop with this information, and that's frustrating for me when I'm being asked my opinion about stuff, because I don't know the history, but I can see, you know, very clearly that we need to fill these gaps. I mean, certainly we need someone in charge of our finances, for sure. I mean, but again, how do we pay for that person? I don't know.
Well, I don't mean to suggest that the fundraising and outreach, that's not being done. It's just not organized and developed yet.
Sure.
So, you know, we have wonderful volunteers and community members and board members who are doing what they can do, and the LDC as well is looking outward and asking and interviewing, as am I, going to other schools. What is your strategy? What do you use in terms of fundraising? Do you retain a company who gets a percentage based on what they bring in? So we are gathering that information. It's not like we're letting it sit there to wither and expire. I mean, there's just a lot of competing priorities.
Yeah.
But it's not something that's being ignored. It's just not well organized, and we don't have the full funding to really put that together in one designated position.
So fundraising is as Christy said, it is a skill, and I think anybody who's ever tried to do it can understand that it is is a skill, and it's calculated, it's well organized, and it is consistent, because you don't just ask for money one time and expect that it's gonna happen for you. You have to, there's a process. And it's really something that needs, you don't hire fundraising and outreach, you invest in fundraising and outreach. And I would agree that from a standpoint of where we are financially, that is not a priority right now. Because we definitely cannot afford to do that. But I think that we need to, and Christy, with what you just said, I would ask that you put that in writing about where you see the management structure.
I
Just
can
the,
compile it, I mean,
and not, I don't want a big, it can be a page and just a paragraph. This is what I see as a gap in this, and here are the skills that live here. And this is what I see as a gap, and here are the skills that live there. Just so that we can have something to see and review.
I think that's part of the goals, is, towards working through the transition, which you said.
Right, which is
still-
We're talking about goals and presenting a dashboard, and we're talking about positions that need filled and what the future is. But I feel like we're ignoring where we're sitting right now. We are not, I cannot, based on what I've seen, fathom a way that all of a sudden we are going to bring in $17,000+ a month in donations. The state isn't just gonna randomly start giving us more money. So we need to deal with the fact of where we are. And where we are is that we're approximately 17,000 a month in the red without paying our debts, other than our mortgage. We've implemented, by we, I mean Christie, some tightening of the schedule. But that's not going to equate to 17,000 a month either. Our payroll is approximately, I mean, it's over 140,000 a month, which is a great deal. That doesn't include benefits. And the salary portion of that alone is 125,000. So even if we got rid of every single hourly person, we still wouldn't have enough money to make it through each month. So while a dashboard and plan to the future are great, how are we gonna get through June? That's what I would like a better understanding of as we sit here tonight discussing what we're gonna do.
Our teachers all have contracts through the school year. Not that we don't need them, I'm not trying to suggest
Yeah.
that, I'm just saying.
But we cut our cleaning services. It was something that they thought would work, and it's not working for them. They've literally gone through like 5 vacuums in 2 months because the standard vacuums just can't hold up to what we deal with. But that's more money, and so I keep putting it off. People are needing us to pay our bills, and I keep putting them off. Because I'm making a priority of payroll, making a payroll, or priority of the benefits and of our mortgages and our sped services. That's where my priorities are. But now what?
This wouldn't fill the 17,000, but I had a parent suggest a $20 a month suggested donation fee per student. And when I was doing it was, if everyone were able to do that, and some families, obviously that's compounded by multiple students, would get about 5,000 a month in recurring donations, but that would still, even if every family did that, it'd still leave a deficit of 12, so.
We do get a couple recurring donations, but it's literally, I think, 3 or 4. And isn't even a parent at the school anymore.
I thought I would mention it because it is a parent who suggested it, willing to put out the money. Do you have genius ideas?
Well,
This year?
I'm that crazy parent that doesn't have a kid here anymore,
That
that's
keeps paying.
giving money to the school.
Thank you.
To your point, we actually did that. I'm not trying to say you can't do it again, but when we started the 21st Century Campaign, I don't know how many years ago, the whole concept was $21 a month by every community member. I can't quote you numbers on the success rate of that, but it wasn't what we had hoped.
Right.
So, given the atmosphere, I actually don't know if it's the right time to put something like that out. When we did that before, we had a really positive vision for the school. We had done some long-range planning. We had done some really good town hall meetings where we presented that information to the community. And a lot of work went into the build-up to that timeframe. So I just think atmospherically, it was a very different place for DMS. And I'm not a negative person. Typically, I'm a realist, but I always am a very hopeful realist. I just don't think realistically it's a time to be asking your community to give. I think that giving right now should be focused on tax credit dollars, as Gregory and you, I guess you're on that committee, right? Or working group are doing, and getting the past due fees as much as you can, and then getting people to pay for the services that they're gonna render for the rest of this year, and not allowing anyone to take advantage of that anymore. That is the biggest opportunity right there. I don't have a brilliant idea. I brought up the same thing that Jessica said, just not as bluntly. I think I was a little more soft in my approach, but I said, what's your plan for the rest of this year, and how are you gonna survive? And that's what needs to be discussed, but then you also, it is the elephant in the room, but I have to tell you, if I got up and walked out of this meeting right now, I wouldn't have a clue what your plan is. So how do you feel good about that? And I'm not being a bitch when I say that, you guys, but that's the
No,
responsibility
I
of the
feel
board.
like that's what my sentiment was, I
yeah.
have not seen a fundraising plan, and I just don't even know what to do about that. I don't know if we have like historical information of what has worked before. My personal instinct is we need to go outside of the community because of the atmosphere. I mean, I've had parents ask me, well, if I pay my donation, materials donation, where is that money even gonna go? I don't trust that it's,
Well, it's gonna go to the debt that we already
I
have.
know, but that's what I'm saying is that the
But we've already bought
attitude is
those
real.
materials.
Right,
I know,
the materials were
But
purchased,
people they don't understand that, so the community
and
is
that can be
very, like,
communicated.
uproarious, so
Yeah.
I feel like we need to reach outside of the community and go corporate, but this is not my area of expertise. I'm willing to help with whatever, and I'm trying to put the materials together, but I don't know. I feel like that's where we need to put our heads together and just talk about what are some ideas, but I don't know, I don't know what goes on in the fundraising committee. I know there's a bunch of parents, they have ideas. Was there a plan there, or previously, was there a plan?
I had talked to
Like,
Jessica
I
about
need
corporate
information.
donors about a month ago, or a few weeks ago, and I think that is a good way to go. It's gonna be a difficult sell, though, depending on your corporation that you're talking to. You're not a school that's,
I
Those,
just feel like at this point, anything's worth a shot.
but those asks, that's a courtship, right? It's
Sure.
not hey, we're in dire need, give us money. That is here's what we do, your donation is gonna make this impact. Here's our annual report that we don't have. Here's, the impact that we have on the community that we don't have. Here is, how we are good stewards of the money that we already have that we don't have. So that's a long-term goal. That's not something that we can step into right now at this
Okay.
moment.
So then I would say then that we need to focus on if our main area of income is giving outstanding fees and giving tax credits and materials, donations, then we need to figure out how to present that to the public in a way that is positive and hopeful kind of change the language that we're using and try and be uplifting about it. I just feel like we're in such a doom and gloom
Right.
state, and
So-
that doesn't help anything.
So I think that the plan should be that Jessica and I will work together and put together a comprehensive analysis that we can do this, we can do this, we can do that, and then we bring that and make some decisions about what it is we can do. I think that is good.
So when we came up with the budget for this year, we were not negative $17,000 a month when we passed that budget, correct?
Income and cash, two different things. So, no, we were not 17 negative a month in our income and our
But
expenses.
somewhere, so are we falling down in how much income we're bringing in? Is that what the $17,000 a month shortage is from? Or are we spending too much every month?
There are a lot of unexpected expenses at the beginning of this year.
But even
And some
now,
cash
say even
shortages.
this month, even January, we're gonna end up 17,000 a month short this month. Is that because our income is so far off what we projected, or is it because our expenses are?
We had some cash expenditures that were unanticipated. Going back to last year, right? I mean, so we've always lived in some sort of, I don't want to call it float, but we've had kind of an undeclared reserve, and we kind of spent through that.
But we don't for January, we don't for February, so what is causing us every month to be $17,000 short?
So within a nonprofit, you always are running at a, I mean, it's unrealistic to say I'm not gonna spend more than I bring in a nonprofit, because the way that things kind of ebb and flow. So one month you may have you may be in the black, another month you may be in the red, just because of the way things go. You think about buying supplies for a school, that's a front-loaded expense, so you're gonna spend way more money in July and August than you will in December, in that category.
But did we spend a lot more money than we needed to in January, or in December, or will we in February? Because if we don't, then.
You should, by your logic, you're thinking we should be able to catch up with
Well,
where we
no,
were.
what I'm saying is, there's gotta be something we can identify.
Right.
Where is that 17,000 shortage? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I want to identify.
And that's why I'm saying that Jessica and I will work together and do some analysis just to see if there is anything there are any levers that we can pull to catch that up. Or to see, or even suggest that we pull a lever. Because we did have a culmination of things. We lost, and in revenue from the state, we lost almost $90,000. Because we had the 60
In October,
in October, and then we've had,
13, for most of the year,
yeah,
based on attendance
yeah.
last year.
So that was,
So it was from the attendance from last year.
That's how it works.
reflected this year.
yeah.
And so that was probably a short-sighted thing during the budget that we didn't.
We wouldn't know. It's not something you could predict because it's a year behind. Well, by the time
The
they,
historical data of that year to year.
oh, that was hard.
If we-
That was a lot. That was not typical. That number is usually about 30,000. It's about half that, and that's on the high side, right? Isn't that what Priscilla said?
I don't know.
And also, it's based on, not only is it based on attendance, and I don't know that I fully understand this, but it makes sense since it's the state, that they do it based on attendance, and if they spent more than they anticipated, they will make the correction and pass it down along to the schools.
Right.
And it's attendance, and it's enrollment, and it's those specific days, and it's averages over time.
Right.
It's for the year before and this year both. And like he said, if they gave you too much money this year because they thought they would have more, they'd
Yeah.
take it out next year.
Right.
So one thing contributing to that 17,000 that we're short every month is that we're not getting the money from the state that we participate.
Well, the state alone is shorting us 13,000 a month. So
Yes.
that's
So that's a
almost,
huge portion of it.
but that's a huge portion of just those couple. I mean, when I say we're short 17,000 a month, it's not of our total operating expenses. It's salary, benefits, special education, mortgages, and our
Oh,
contracts.
I understand
So it's
that,
not,
yes.
it's not,
But what he's
it's not
saying is that
paper,
it's,
toilet paper and.
but he's saying it's $13,000
Yeah.
in cash that we will
Yeah.
get if we don't.
Correct.
Yeah, which would, go a long way towards the deficit.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, you are correct, that there are, it's not we're spending money like drunken sailors, it is a cash.
Yeah, the revenue is not coming in.
Right.
That's where the short end of the stick is.
Right.
At least for these months where we know we don't have any extra money to spend.
Right.
That may have happened earlier in the year. when I
Right.
thought.
So the plan is that Jessica and I will work together. And we'll have a recommendation. Does that feel good to you, Jessica?
Sure, for the February meeting. I think we will do it before then.
So we're having a discussion?
No, I mean, we need to get together.
Hold on. It's the 22nd.
Yes.
Feel free to talk amongst yourselves, I gotta check on my calendar.
You can get that communication via email throughout the month. You don't have to wait for a special meeting to see what they talk about. They can share that with the board, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But for
we-
us to have a goal that we're putting out to people.
that's separate from what we're, because the goal that we're gonna put out is just where we are from this is what our expenses were, this is what our cash is, this is what this is. So we're just reporting the actual facts.
Okay. And then I'll be at the board meeting. And to get a accurate assessment, it would need to be done because the bank statements and everything need to be entered. I have contacted the credit card company to see if they can move our closing date so that it's more in line with, because as it stands now, we're always missing our credit card charges.
Yes, after.
Have you guys calculated the savings from the positions that were eliminated recently?
I have not. The positions just now that were,
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of them were not salary, so I was hoping to see that in the January 22nd payroll. But it did not come out as expected due to the holidays and whatnot falling into the pay period. So on the next one, I will be more confident with that information.
Will that help with the 17,000 number potentially?
No, I have that already. I have 18,000 already taken out,
Mhm.
because that was the guess that we did prior to for the payroll and the benefits for those individuals.
So
It was
when you-
approximately 18,000 already, and I've already deducted that.
So when you say that it didn't come out because it had a holiday, so was it lower than you expected it to be?
No, when we met that day and worked on it, we had anticipated that payroll would be 20% less in January because of the two holidays, because they both fall into the January payroll, and it was more than that, so I was actually considerably under what we had anticipated.
Why was it more?
I didn't, in first, because I didn't know until after then, that the salary employees alone were 125,000. And when we had met and, we had guessed approximately 20% less, that made it 128, and we paid more than $3,000 in hourly people for those 2 weeks.
You have to understand that so our winter break, although it was a clean 2-week break,
It was
one
on
week fell on, one payroll, the other
Right,
week
they were
fell
both
on.
in January.
Right,
They're both paid in January.
Yes.
but it wasn't a clean 2-week,
Right. No, but what I'm saying is when when the three of us sat there that night and guessed about 20% less, we did not yet know that salary alone was 125. So the 20% left us $2,800 for everyone else for the whole month of January payroll. So it was considerably more than I had anticipated. And then there were, as discussed earlier, we did not have in line those safety measures for hourly employees, punching in and out and not working when they are not scheduled to work. So there was some of that as well.
At the risk of being the most unpopular person in the room, has there been any analysis of further cutting? And I'm not,
Yes, there has.
okay.
That is a conversation that
I
is
mean,
ongoing.
are we as lean as we can be and still offer
No.
what we need to offer to our students?
I've been in, if it's okay, I've been invited into LDC meetings to provide the financial information, and it is being discussed.
And do teachers all have upcoming, parent meetings? I think my daughter has one in February.
I
Is
know a
something that-
couple have, but I know in second grade, we have not been provided a date for a parent meeting, first grade.
I'm wondering if it might be beneficial if we could talk to teachers and say, can we have, 5-10 minutes every meeting where a board member could come in and talk about materials donations, talk about tax credits. I feel like when there's a face-to-face in a smaller group, you get a better dynamic, you get better conversation, you can explain things more clearly. It's just a more positive environment to share that information. If that might be a way to just connect to people,
Can I suggest something?
worth trying.
So a few years ago,
Oh, yeah.
we, board members, all participated in that with every class meeting. So there were very regular parent class meetings, and I can't comment to that since I don't have a kid in school anymore, if that still happens. And every board member made sure we assigned a board member to a grade, and it was their responsibility to communicate in person at the class meeting and stand up and make a presentation about, you remember, because you were a
Okay.
part of that. We did that. So we've been doing it for years. And the board table on a Friday, I remember going to Starbucks and buying a couple of gallons of coffee and sitting a table out. And it was some designated Fridays leading up until April 15th with a signage. And you guys nailed that at the Winter Fair, so you got that now at your disposal. But, and talking to people face to face and being there and starting conversations and just being outgoing and talking to people you don't even know. The tax credit and having those little postcards handy. So it was community outreach constantly, and the board owned it.
And does it help?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was waiting to hear.
Yes. Yes. Tried to work the table.
I think I worked it very successfully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But if we could
You
like
reeled in
some
those
talking
students,
points.
like, talk to the parent.
That was not a criticism.
I didn't take it as word, I just wanted to receive the proper accolade.
As I
If
paid
you
for
would
your lunch
please.
that day?
But I think if that's something we're interested in, we can get, some sort, I don't wanna say script, but like specific talking
Yeah.
points and links, cause I'm terrible at explaining tax credit, but I can
Well-
say, go here, you can get information. or
On the
this is-
back side of the form is the Q&A. Is that still available?
I think I
where's
just
that
saw
form?
that. I think I just saw
I
that
think there
recently.
was some Tammy's ones.
Yeah. Explains
Yeah,
everything.
I think when they did a push for the tax credits, that's where it was.
And
That's
Gregory
my
and
brilliant
John and
idea
Julie could
that
do a
apparently
fantastic
I
job of training all of you on what to say and what kind of questions they got at the Winter Fair, so that you're prepared to know how to answer
I
them.
just think that at least is something
That's what I'm talking
tangible that
about.
we can actively do, communication.
It'd be nice and hit up the food truck people.
Exactly.
Their tax credits, I have no shame.
Did you
Did they
have
pay?
success there?
No, but they, it's always, it's planting that seed
Yeah.
that's really important. It's really a spiral approach when you're talking to people, so. I mean, now they know what it is. I've talked to all my neighbors way over in Goodyear West, so now they're like, oh.
It's a face-to-face
Like,
thing. It
Next
really
time I see you
is.
at the mailbox.
You can send it out in a bee every week, but it's a face-to-face event.
Okay.
Just one idea to throw out there.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, when you serve as a board member, you're tasked with a certain financial give that you're supposed to help the organization achieve. We are about 85 grand in the hole for the rest of the year, and we have 8 board members and an executive director. If we split it up just among the board members, it's like a little more than 10 grand each in terms of fundraising or coordinating or working with classes and showing up in the classroom, explaining the need, encouraging class parents to give. I mean, I know we all have limited time, but sometimes just saying, hey, you're responsible for this dollar amount, find a way, find people, figure it out. It's an easy, all of a sudden you have a target that you can try and hit. And you have some personal responsibility. I don't know how everybody feels about that, but, and it certainly, would come in bursts and trickles, but at least it would be something that we could all be working towards.
That's an idea. That is an idea. Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
I think that's a great goal for each one of us. I think if we're all working towards it, I think we can, there's definitely parents. I see some parents in the room consistently at these meetings. Like, asking for help on this kind of thing would also be probably a good idea. I know when PTC works really hard, like talking to people who, I think just getting the word out there and with their transparency is gonna probably make people more likely to understand where we are and how we're trying to go get it. If they've already done their tax credit, then they might still have, like I'm saying, like neighbors, there might be other people that they can still, utilize. Some people who have local family, like if there's other people who are, filing Arizona taxes who are eligible for receiving a credit, like that would be nice to get more people, not just parents, but like the ripple effect of that to really help us out.
I think that it is a good idea for the board to reach out to their personal networks and ask them to support the school with their tax credit. But I also think that that they should have something to make that ask with. Like there should be a standard sort of, ask, an email or maybe a script or something that you talk to your folks, to your network about. So that it is a consistent message and it is something that you can, that's scalable, that can be duplicated easily. Because if every one of them is gonna be a half an hour, 45-minute conversation, then boy, there's time for that.
Right.
Do we have a document like that exists?
We have a one-page kind of Q&A about the tax credit.
I mean, but for the school, because people they wanna know
Yeah.
about what they're doing for do we have something that talks about DMS?
We do have a comprehensive brochure.
The 22-pager?
No, it's we have a small version as well.
Okay.
More
Can-
condensed version.
Can you send that to us?
We have that email that we were sending out, which is.
Right, I mean, it's not lengthy, but it does explain, hey, this money goes towards materials, it goes towards maintaining the campus, including the garden and ponds, our buildings, and
So I think it would need to be tweaked to someone who may not have ever been to the campus.
Right,
That
right.
you know, we provide a beautiful curriculum and these are the things that.
So that's what I was starting on, when I started gathering the stories of the pictures.
Yeah.
Well, it's not 20 pages, but it's not one page, so we can find a comprehensive.
You were just speaking about the board members kind of jumping in
And I'm not talking about from personal funds.
no, I understand. But where I was taking it was, we have, a number of parents on our board. And as the person that's doing the money, I can tell you that a number of our board members have not paid their material fees. So it's hard for me to ask the community to buy in when we're not, I mean, we're sitting here and we're not even doing our part in some ways. So it's a hard ask.
Well, I mean, be that as it may, like that situation, which I think is unfortunate, but it is what it is. I don't think that's a reason, the school still has a need. We have a fiduciary obligation to the
Yes.
school. So setting aside personal obligations to the school, I don't think, I understand the internal conflict that creates, but that conflict doesn't change the fact that the school has a pretty urgent need right now.
I agree.
Do you know how many, our percentage of families have been able to donate their tax credit thus far? Because with those booths, are we gonna get more bang for our buck if we were to do booths? Because if we've already had 85% of our families give, then we should hit up a different population. But if we've only had 15%
It is a
give,
very
then-
small percentage. I don't have the exact numbers, but I can gather it.
That would be something for the dashboard as well. Present
Oh.
the families who have given.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Could it be something that's talked about at the town hall meeting also?
would be another strategy along the lines Julie was talking about, is anytime there is a public event at the school, if we can take 5 minutes of that event to talk about all the great things we do, and we need money to fund all those things, so please give. I think that would be a good, just kind of everyday operating thing, if we possibly can get somebody there to do that.
I agree. The more known we make it and available we make ourselves, that it's necessary to keep this awesome school running, that we need that.
So the number's gonna sound odd, but some of the faculty have money withdrawn from every paycheck for the tax credit. So the total collected is $6,000. It's $5,962.80.
So, and there's the 250 folks. The last one I read.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up.
Okay, so you're gonna send the brochures.
I can say what we have and any suggestions in terms of modification, in terms of what you're thinking and what you're thinking to adjust to your needs for the group. You're gonna reach out to you, we can certainly make this.
And therefore, you said you were working on
I was
something.
working on something too, yeah, with Reggie's pictures and, the stories that were coming in, and I was working with Christian getting some statistics, and then using a part of that thank you letter with, here's where your money will go. It's just a one-page
Perfect.
thing. That could go out to anybody.
Yes, that's, if we're gonna go outside of the community, then it
Yeah.
needs to be generic enough for that.
K through 8.
Generally, I mean, if you can, yeah, if it's
We
not
do
gonna
have
matter,
a
because once they have to flip to that other, just thinking about from things on like what's gonna grab your attention too.
So mine is set up, it's like an email profile, so it looks like a newsletter.
Okay, right. All right,
The pre-K through 12 enrollment is, according to the spreadsheet Dina updated 6 days ago, 321.8. .8 has to
Is that,
do,
I'm sorry, is that just public, you say pre-K?
pre-K is private also.
So tax credit only applies to the public roads.
Now anyone can do it.
Different amounts,
I'm sorry?
maybe a different amount?
No, because I had asked Charlie about that a couple of years ago, and,
Because we're not private.
okay. Yeah, so it's the 2-4. But the .8 is because of the 3-day, we don't have a 2-day, so the 3-day and how much the littles count as. They don't, in the eyes of the state, they don't count as whole people yet.
They're not an FTE. They're not a full-time equivalent. FTE, full-time equivalent, yeah. You know that.
And we did look into, would we get more money if we had kinder go all day? And the answer was no. So that would increase our costs and not provide us any more income.
Could we do 2 half-day kindergarten? Half-day morning and half-day?
The problem with doing 2 kinders is
That we have to make it.
we don't have anywhere to put them for the following year. I asked if we could do 2 half-days and have the same students in the morning and the afternoon, and the answer to that was no as well. I did try.
Okay. So that information is going to be sent by April and Christie to the board. Jessica and I are gonna work together to do some analysis to have something to make some decisions on. Does anybody have anything else?
Are we then asking the LDC not to do what they're currently working through until we do that? Or are they to continue working with Christine? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave that out. Or are they to continue with what they are working on to find ways to reduce costs?
Oh, I think that definitely they can continue to work on it, but don't do anything until we've done our analysis.
So what is the deadline we are giving ourselves?
You said we were gonna have something about the next board meeting.
I don't think we should wait that long. I think Julie had mentioned that, and I said I didn't think we should, that we had essentially another 3 weeks to sit on it.
So if we get it done in 2 weeks, then what does that mean?
I don't understand what you're asking.
You're saying we don't have 3 weeks to do it. We don't have it done yet. When we do it, there's an analysis that has to be done. We're gonna come to the board, so how is getting it, because that's what we promised, that we were gonna come to the board with the analysis.
Right, and we can provide that book. But, so are we telling the LDC don't do anything until we get back to you? And then does the whole board have to approve what changes they're making, which seem more operational than governance? I'm trying to understand what we're doing here.
No, we don't have to approve anything, but I am saying that don't do anything until we've done our analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
That puts us into March.
Puts you into March.
Puts us into March, but your analysis isn't going to come out till the 22nd of February. Then we're looking at March, 19th of February.
When were you
Next
looking?
board- You say the next board meeting?
No, I'm saying that the board meeting doesn't matter, when that happens. When are you looking to do something?
Right, immediately.
What do you think that the analysis is going to provide that's going to change the move forward?
I won't know until we do it.
So,
Is,
I think
is
it's.
Monday too late?
Let me take 10 days, but I mean,
Okay.
it can't be a month.
Okay. Yeah, we'll shoot for Monday. Anything else? I think that's the end of our agenda. Can we have a move? Someone move to adjourn?
Is there a motion?
I did.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?